Thank you for joining us on the 4th episode of the Pain to Purpose podcast. Today I have the immense pleasure of welcoming Sterna Suissa. Sterna is a trauma-informed parenting coach, mom of 4, and wonderful human. Sterna, welcome.
Thank you, Aurelie, for having me here today.
Thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure. I've been wanting you to come on for so long. And I love the work that you do. I remember the first time that I saw your Instagram page. And I think I sent you a message saying, this is amazing. This is what we need. Like, this is so, it's this parenting approach is so needed, I find, in our day and age. So I really just want to say that I just admire your work so much.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. And I'm happy that it resonated with you the day that you...
Definitely. Still does, obviously. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. How did you become a parenting coach? How did you gain interest in, this whole field of parenting?
It's a really interesting question. And I sometimes ask myself that question,
right.
How did I get here?
Right.
And the way I see my life, and I guess life in general, is we're given a lot of puzzle pieces, different events, these types of parents, this education, this experience, and it's like a bunch of puzzles in my life, puzzle pieces that I've experienced. And some of them we don't choose, some of them we choose, and a lot of the puzzle pieces that are given in our childhood to us are not chosen. And I always questioned, why? Why was I given no mother? Why was I experiencing this? Why did I have to go through this? Why did I witness this? And it was kind of like these puzzle pieces, here, here, here. And I don't know how this is going to fit in my life, but these are the puzzle pieces that were given to me. And, I think of like when I do a puzzle with my kids, the first thing I tell them always is like, okay, what are we going to do? We have a pile of puzzles here, pieces. And the first step is you uncover them, right? You pick them up. We're going to put them all face up. We're going to see what's happening. And with the puzzle pieces that I was given in my life, I knew that in my heart, I was not given a mother. My upbringing was really, really challenging. I knew that I wanted to be a different type of parent to my kids. And I was on a personal mission for my own self. What is a mother's role? And what is the purpose of parenting? And how am I going to go about this? And how can I understand my kids? And I started studying, learning, questioning for my own self. At the same time, I opened up a department at OMETS, a nonprofit organization here in Montreal. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yes.
So I opened up a department for individuals that were misunderstood in the community. So think of individuals that are, rejected from schools or kicked out of schools, or teens that are, thrown out of their homes and were never given a chance to, succeed. They were completely misunderstood. So I opened up this department at OMETS with other individuals too. And I was helping, a group of young adults to give them the opportunities and to understand them in ways that they were never in their younger years. And at the same time, I was studying all of this on my own. So these two components were happening at the same time. And I also had, started raising my kids, and I would go to the park very, very often. And you know how it is in our neighborhood. There's parks almost at every corner of every street.
Yeah.
Every time I would go to the park, I would message my friends, hey guys, I'm at this park. If you want, come join me. So I would spend a lot of hours with kids at the park and my friends. you know how many situations come up at the park.
Yeah.
And so many situations would come up and I would, navigate them in the best way that I can. And slowly my friends started to ask me, oh, wow, oh my God, I can't believe you just, navigated that. Like, I would have never had done what you just did. Like, tell me more. And then they started to notice the relationship I had with my kids, small things, I remember once my friend, she messaged me, she goes, Sterna, I don't know, you just get up from the park, you tell your kids we're going, and like they just follow you. Like, why is it such a struggle for me? Different things like that. And slowly I started opening up to them about what I was learning for my own self. I started sharing with them. And then they would call me. They're like, oh my God, Sterna, you don't understand. I did this and like this changed now. This changed now. And like things were shifting in their relationship for the positive. There was more collaboration, more connection with their child. And so I would share, and I started to become their go-to person. Like, hey, we need your advice on this. And I would just share because this is what I was so passionate about for myself, until a few of my friends came to see me and they're like, we actually want you to put together
Of course.
everything and like we just want to sit and hear.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness, like, I kind of like let that go. And as I was telling you, the same time I was working at OMETS, and I was just like navigating these young adults and thinking to myself, if only their parents knew the stuff that I know now that I'm doing with my kids, if only how much would have been different for these adults. And I knew that at the core of it all was our childhood, right? Like the challenges we're facing in our adulthood, most of them stem from our childhood. And at the same time, my friends were pushing me. So I started just sharing with my friends. One night I said, you know what, guys, come over. Fine, we'll tackle one topic at a time. I tackled emotions one night. The next week we did boundaries. The next week, one thing after the next. And I don't know, it lasted a few weeks and they were giving me feedback. And then I would talk, like every child's unique, every relationship is unique. So we would discuss and sometimes they would come. And I saw how amazing it was. And I was like, I can't just keep this to myself. It would be selfish of me. But at the same time, something happened during that time where we were having those meetings in person. COVID hit. I was no longer, nobody was coming over. It was,
right.
So they were telling me, you have to go online. Oh wait, I missed a part. So after my friends came, they said, each of them were talking to their friends and they said, Kate, now there's more parents that want to hear from you, Sterna. And my house started to become packed.
Wow.
Yeah, like people were coming all the time. And I started to organize myself more content-wise, really creating it like over a 6-week period of time, once a week. And then like I had groups of couples come over. So I did, several groups and then COVID hit. And that's when the parents were telling me, we don't want to lose touch.
Wow.
We want to hear more from you. Like, please go online. So I pushed through my discomfort because it doesn't come naturally to show up online.
Why not?
I'm a very, it might take you by surprise, but I am a more reserved, I like to live in my little bubble in my house, You
don't like the public, like the spotlight, the public eye?
I won't run to it.
Okay.
Unless I have a very important message like right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to push through my discomfort and I said, you know what? If I could be helpful, let me do it. And so I went online and a whole new world opened up for me. Suddenly, I was talking to parents from all over the world.
Amazing.
And one thing led to the next. So back to your main question.
Yes.
So the question was, how did I become?
Yeah.
So it came to me. And at the same time, it had placed a lot of those puzzle pieces together. A big picture was created with many, many of my puzzle pieces of different aspects. And I teach what I had to learn myself. That's what it is, which I'm still learning till today.
I love what you said when you say it came to me. I often get the question, how do I find my purpose? And I always say, your purpose finds you. Like, we think we have to like go searching for it. But the more you become yourself, your authentic self, and the more it just, you draw it in and it comes to you. Do you agree with that?
It comes to you, and we also need to have an open mind to it.
Yeah, step into it.
We have to have an open mind to it. It's not what I thought I would be, you know, like our younger self, like what will you be when you grow up? It's definitely never in my wildest dreams what I think that I would be doing what I'm doing today.
What did you think you'd be doing?
A lot of other things, not this.
Okay.
I'm very artistic. I have a lot of different sides of myself.
Okay.
But I never thought this. I grew up without a mother, right?
So tell me more about that. You want to share what happened?
So I grew up without a mother. My father fought for full custody. And for all parents out there, you know, sometimes it's hard. They fight for full custody and they don't know, you know, are their children going to be upset at them after? I happen to be very grateful for, you know, what my father fought for the time being at that time. I understand it now that I'm older. So I grew up without a mother. I met my mother at 18 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
At 18 years old, I met my mother for the first time. Along with other step siblings and stuff. So it's that's what it is. So
And growing up, what did that little girl think in her mind?
It's an interesting question because as a child, our environment is our norm. We think that whatever house we're living in, whatever relationship we have with our parent is the norm. Because as kids, if we think about it, like look at a little newborn. They are so helpless. They are so dependent on their caregivers.
Yeah.
Unlike any other living thing that comes into this world, right? We are the most dependent.
Yeah.
And so we are wired to survive. And if we were for 1 second gonna think that our environment or our parents are not good enough or not there for us, adequate or whatever, then we would not be able to survive, because how am I going to get all of my needs if my caregivers aren't good enough to take care of me? So I grew up thinking that this is my home, everything is wonderful. I mean, as a little child it was. I didn't have a mother and I didn't think anything of it until I went to school one day, and then there were kids in my class that came to me and said, "Where's your mother? You know, is she dead?" And then another one said, "No, her parents are divorced." I never heard the word divorced.
Really?
I was living in my own little bubble with my single dad.
Wow.
I was like, what are they talking about? And then I was like, oh, yeah, I don't have a mother. Like, it was never even a thing in my head. For me, it was just my norm. And we think it's normal.
So at that point, so you're in school, you know, you're in elementary school, you see kids with their moms. How did that feel? What did that feel like growing up? Like, did you feel that lack? Or again, like you said, was it just, well, this is me, this is my norm?
I always had a vision that moms, whoever has a mom, has a perfect life. I always felt that. Like, if your mom is by your side, everything must be amazing for you. You must have so much support and love in your life. That was hard for me to realize later on in my life that actually some people have moms that are physically there but invisible.
Oh, yeah.
That was very hard for me to see as I was getting older. And so yeah, that was what that is what I thought. I thought that whoever.
So you did feel the lack. You did feel the.
But I blocked it out completely.
You blocked it out.
For me, I never spoke about it. I felt somewhat like ashamed.
Shame.
Right? Like if my own, like I don't have my mother. Oh my God, like
it must be me.
Who doesn't have a mother? So it was something I completely blocked out, never spoke about, and my friends understood. It's just not a topic we talk about. You know, it's just not a thing. I lived my life as if I had a mother.
Wow. And so fast forward, you're 18 years old. Who initiated? Well, first of all, did you throughout the years look to meet her before you were 18?
I never did.
Okay.
I blocked out any feeling of a need.
To protect your heart.
Right.
Yeah. And then what happened at 18?
A lot happened, but how I met her was my brother told me one day, come into the car. I want you to meet people.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, okay, who are we going to meet?
What? That is.
And so that was it. He just drove up to a sister of mine, like one of my mom's kids that she had before meeting my dad. And I stepped into the house and there was my mom.
Wow. And how did that go?
So my mom is a very warm, loving individual. So of course she like gave me a big hug. She was very emotional.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you connect with her? Did you want to build a relationship at that point? Well, first of all, were you shocked on the spot?
You could imagine, right? It is.
Yeah. I can't
just a
imagine.
little shocking. Yeah, it is.
That wasn't the best way to introduce.
Well, what is there? Is there ever a best way to introduce?
I mean, prepare the person psychologically, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But anyway, it happened the way it happened.
Yeah, my brother did his best. He did on the car ride tell me.
Okay.
You know, he spoke to me like.
He's your older brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that much older. He's just a year older.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, he did, you know, he did do his best. So you asked me, how was it for me?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that a parent could give birth to a child, and unless you build a relationship with them, they're a complete stranger. Like for me, meeting my mom, it was like, okay, this is your mom. But there was no connection, so it was like a stranger to me. And at the end of the day, I think that that's valid also for every mom out there. Like giving birth to your child doesn't automatically grant you this connection with that human being unless it's built. And I mean, there's no, like, it's literally, it was like a stranger to me. You know, the stranger that I had to discover as my mom.
Wow. I need a minute, guys. This is so hard. I'm an empath, so this is like, whoo. Wow, God bless you. Wow. Okay, to collect myself. So at that point, you're 18, you meet your mom. By the way, did she ever look to reach out throughout the years, or?
I'm sure she did.
Okay.
I'm sure she did.
Okay. And at that point, you are 18, so you're, an adult, technically. Did you want to build a relationship with her, connect with her? What happened then?
Of course.
You want to share?
Of course. I started to talk to her a little bit more. I would go meet her. Yeah, I would listen to her stories of her life.
Okay. And did that answer questions for you? Getting to know her, hearing her story?
It answered a lot of questions. It helped me understand why my father took the decisions he did.
Okay.
And of course, I mean, you could imagine my mom would have loved to raise me, you know, and she, how do I say this? So she sometimes tells me, you know, like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I always tell her, this was part of the puzzle piece.
Wow.
You know,
I have chills.
this is the way it was supposed to be. And I'm okay with it, you know?
Okay, I have to jump in and ask this question right now. How much therapy? At what point did you, I'm assuming you've done therapy work, inner work. At what point, first of all, what point did you feel the need? When did it start? Did this event, the meeting of your mom, did that how much did that trigger in you? I have so many questions, but I'm listening.
At that point, I was not very much in tune with myself when I met my mom.
Okay.
So I was numbed out. It was like, oh, okay, this is my mom.
You had closed your heart.
If I would have met her maybe today, where I'm at today, being so much more aware of myself, I think it would have been probably a more difficult situation for me. But because I was 18, totally numbed out, completely checked out, I just went with the flow.
Okay.
It wasn't something that I felt like, oh my God, I need help to navigate. No.
So emotions didn't even come up at
Nothing.
that point?
I was totally disassociated, totally numbed out.
Wow. So when did the emotions come up? When did you start realizing I need to get in tune?
So when
I mean, when I say emotions, I don't mean necessarily regarding the fact that you grew up without a mom. I mean just you connecting to your heart in general and, stepping out of the numbness into emotions in general.
Yeah, it's a long process. It wasn't like at this point, but I can tell you that when I was pregnant with my first, it started to hit me hard. Like, how am I going to be a mother? Am I fit to be a mother?
Wow.
How am I going to be there for this child? I don't know what that's like. And it hit me that at that point in my life when I gave birth, it hit me at what extent we really need mothers. Because I had to show up for my daughter in ways that nobody showed up for me for.
Right.
Or I looked at her little baby body of 1 year old and I'm like, oh my God, at 1 year old, my parents got divorced.
Wow.
And I cannot imagine this little baby now being separated from me. You know? So at what point, when I got pregnant, that's when it hit me hard.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine. That's a big one. I'm going to backtrack. So you were raised by your dad with one brother. And what kind of parent was he? What was your relationship to him?
So, like I said, I am so grateful to my dad. There could be a lot of conflicting emotions that we have towards our parents.
Absolutely.
And for many years, I felt a lot of anger too for the things that he failed to give me.
When would you say that? When were those?
When I became a teenager.
Okay.
When I became a teenager, it was extremely challenging for my dad.
Okay.
To navigate whatever was going on. And
there was no stepmom in the picture?
No.
Okay.
No. And I now understand that my father wasn't able to give me what he was never given. And that puzzle piece in his life, he's never looked at it. You see, he never looked at, wow, look what I went through as a teenager. He was never able to give me what he didn't get as a teenager too. And those were really challenging years for me, because going from a parent who's everything to you and then seeing that they're no longer able to be there for you is extremely painful.
Of course.
So I had a lot of anger.
How did you feel then?
When what? As a teenager?
Yeah. Like when you were saying going from a parent that is everything to you, because there's only one, to doesn't seem there's anybody here.
Exactly.
So
no one's there.
No one's there.
No one's there.
He was checked out.
No one's there.
You must have felt very alone.
Yeah. Very alone, to say the least. So anger, so I'm completely numbed out, completely, going through. When I got married, it's a new page in your life. Suddenly you're out of survival mode. Suddenly someone is there.
I mean, if you're lucky.
I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very, very lucky,
Yeah.
very blessed. And someone is there, and you're having conversations, and things start to hit you. And then, you get pregnant, and you start to think like, oh my God, this is a human being, and like all of these things. And I started to have a lot of anger towards my dad, right? So I remember I tried speaking to him. You try speaking.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in my mind, like, if I can get an apology, everything will be okay.
Did you get it?
You know what I realized? It's stories we create in our mind to avoid tackling our own self.
Yeah.
I was so stuck for a really long time, really, really stuck on, I really need an apology. I'm so angry. I would write him emails and I never got one. And that's okay.
But can you...
And I realized,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I realized that, let's imagine that I did get this apology. Nothing would change. I would still have that pain. And that's why I'm sharing this.
Yeah.
When we actually want to start looking at our life, it's so easy to point fingers. It's so easy to say, you do this or you did this. No matter what anybody has ever done to me, no matter what apology we get from someone, at the end of the day, it's not going to magically remove the pain of those experiences.
Exactly.
And it's up to me today to say, okay, what now? What now?
And I'm going to go a step further, and let me know if you agree with this. In my own personal practice, I always say, more than an apology, even if magically at 25 your parent decides, I'm going to be this new, amazing, conscious parent and do things differently with you, and you're like, yay, I'm 25 and I'm finally going to, get the love I never got, get the whatever I didn't get, it won't take away the trauma. It just won't. You cannot, I call it those emotional nutrients or vitamins that we're supposed to get as children, whatever that is, the love, the acceptance, the care. If you don't get it as a child, as an adult, you can never get it back from anything outside of you. Not from your parents, not from your husband, not from your partner, not from money, not from success. You can only go back in and pull it out of yourself and get it, cultivate it from within yourself and give it to yourself. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I do think also it probably eases the pain to have an apology, to have a parent to turn to talk about the past.
Yes.
That acknowledges, and validates the experiences. However, there's still that component of it being part of us,
Yeah.
And part of what are we going to do now with that?
Yeah.
No one else, it's in no one else's hands. And it's easy to say, like, you know, to point fingers. And today I have come a really far way from all that anger that I felt. And I can actually, I feel so much gratitude for what my dad, through those hurtful experiences, has shown me not to do, you know? And I think that when we have parents that have done hurtful things to us, it's painful. And there's also so much that we can, at the right time, of course, at the right time, learn from those experiences.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I say 100%, but it takes so much strength and growth, Sterna, to be where you are and to be able to say that.
And time.
And time.
Time and acceptance of whatever stage you're in. Like, if you're feeling angry right now, if anybody listening to this feels so upset at their parents, then feel that. Feel it. It's okay. You know, what they did was not okay. And you were not worthy of such behavior. And it makes sense to feel anger, and it makes sense to feel hurt and, you know, in pain. Sit with that. Once it passes, you're going to get into a new stage.
Were you able to do that on your own, or did you need outside help? Like, again, therapy, coaching, healing, whatever it is.
So I'm very, very close to my brother.
Okay.
And I think what has helped me a lot was sharing a lot of conversations together.
Okay.
Throughout those years.
Okay. So at least you had that.
Yeah. It was really, really helpful to me.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so fast forward. So you tried to build a relationship with your mom, and there was also sounds like a lot of tension with your dad, or anger towards your dad. Today you're how old? Do you want to share?
Sure. I'm 38. I just turned 38.
Okay. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
So you're 38. What's your relationship like today to your parents, and how has it evolved throughout the years since then?
So, a relationship, I had to take some time to individualize into my own self.
So sorry to interrupt. Can you explain to our audience what that means?
When you're raised in a way where you don't get to be your own self, and you need to be the person your parents want you to be, and in general, community-wise, school-wise, a lot of different components in my life where I didn't know myself. So I had to take a step back and really kind of individualize into who I am today. Just to share an example, I remember my father coming over one day, and I was surprised to see on his screensaver there was a picture of me as a 5-year-old girl.
Wow.
So he has it blowed up on his, you know, and I'm just looking at his phone, and he saw me, you know, looking at his phone, and he took the phone and he goes, "Wow, Sterna, look how sweet you are in this picture. You were such a good girl, such a sweet girl." And he looks at me, he goes, "What happened to you?" Not in a mean way,
Okay.
but like, "You were such a sweet, like, look what." And I turned to him and I said, "I became me. That's what happened to me."
Wow.
I became me. I found my voice. I found my own boundaries. I became me.
Wow.
But that's what it is, right? So I had to step back to find myself and then regain a relationship where it was me with my parent, you know? So yeah, look, there's bumps on the road sometimes, things come up, and I've learned to navigate it. I'm still learning to navigate certain things as they come up.
So you do have a relationship with your parents today, and they're a part of your life, your children's life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a relationship. Of course, it's probably not, you know, what it could be. Like what I strive to have with my kids type of thing.
You mean it's not your ideal? Is that what you're saying?
It's how to describe this? I know my parents' capabilities, and I navigate that relationship according to what they're capable of.
Okay. I got it. If you were to, well, actually, no. You were saying he looked at the picture and he said, you were so sweet. You were such a good girl. So who was Sterna, little girl Sterna? What kind of girl was she before this journey?
I was Miss People Pleaser.
Can you tell our audience, why do you think you became Miss People Pleaser as a child?
Well, I needed to feel a sense of belonging. I needed to feel loved to survive. And I knew that if I did things that wouldn't please the adults in my life, then I would get less of that. So I kind of learned to please others.
What else? Who else were you? Meaning, when I ask who else were you, meaning what were the behaviors that you adopted as a little girl to survive?
To not have any boundaries, right?
Okay.
To basically whatever others are asking of me,
you would do.
I didn't want to deceive them.
Okay. And if you were to speak to that little girl today, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, you did the best you can with the situation given. And I am so grateful that you navigated that in the best way possible. Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, it's just, yeah.
And if you were her mom, what advice would you give her?
This little girl?
Yeah.
I understand why it's so frightening for you to use your voice. But one day, you're going to re-find it.
In a big way.
in a big way. And it's going to be okay.
Beautiful.
Your voice is just on pause.
I love that.
That's what I would tell this little girl.
I love that. Back to what we were saying, for me, I cannot be the parent I am, and I'm far from perfect, but I cannot be the parent I am without deep inner work of my own trauma and my own,
For sure.
And every time that I have a struggle with one of my children, and I have one in particular that, I don't know how to word it, he's very special, God bless him. They're all special, but he's different than the others, obviously. And every time something major happens and I lose myself, I don't know what to do, I go straight into my deep healing work, and that completely, that gives me the wisdom I need or the tools I need. Because my kids just bring out in me, they bring up to the surface exactly what I need to heal. Exactly, it's as if my kids help me raise myself, really. It's no, I'm raising my kids. No, they help me raise myself and reparent myself. And therefore, I could be a better parent for them. So I can't imagine what it's like being a parent without healing or therapy or some inner work as a parent. That's what I was talking about. during the break.
That's why it's called parenting. We are parenting. We're not childing.
I love that.
We're growing up.
I love it. Exactly.
And the thing is, if you weren't going to look at yourself, then you would impose it on your kids to be the ones parenting.
Yep.
It's not their role.
Absolutely. I love
That's
that.
what happens when we don't look at ourselves. We put the finger on them.
Wow. I love that. So if your general questions about parenting, what do you think is the main goal of parenting? Meaning, should we have a specific outcome in mind as a parent? What's, a healthy outcome or a healthy goal that we should have?
I love this question. It reminds me of an encounter I had with a coworker of mine once, a few years ago, that really marked me. I saw her a few years after I haven't seen her, and, I told her, how are you? How are your kids? I know that she was struggling with her kids back then, the different challenges that, we face as parenting. And she had shared with me, she said, and now this lady, her husband had passed away when she was raising her kids at a very young age.
Wow.
And she had several boys to raise on her own. And you can imagine how challenging that is. And she had shared with me that one of her kids got married, and another one of her kids were studying somewhere. And then the last child that was at home with her, she was telling me, my child is currently now going to be leaving to be living really far away from me. And I looked at her and I said, how does that feel for you? And she told me something that stayed with me. She said, Sterna, I raised my kids for them to fly with their own two wings. Everyone is telling my child, how could you leave your mom? Your mom who doesn't have a partner, your mom who's alone. After all these years that she raised you, how could you leave? How could you move so far?
Wow.
And she said, I told my child, you're not here for me. I'm the one that's here for you. And it takes a lot of strength as a parent to understand that that's our goal. Our kids, they're not here for us. We're the ones that are here for them. And the greatest joy is when our kids fly with their own two wings that we spent an entire childhood helping them gain. And oftentimes, what I'm seeing from my surroundings is the opposite. Parents need to feel needed by their kids, to have a sense of need. The child needs to step into this role of, I need to be there for my parent. No, that's not the goal as parents, at least not mine.
I think not only is that not the goal, that's very detrimental to a child to be parentified that way and to have that responsibility on their shoulders and not experience their childhood as a child.
Exactly.
But as an adult. And this is like something that just triggers me so much when I hear like parents say like, I sacrificed so much for them. I gave so, like, how could they do this to me? And it's like, I get it. Like, I'm a parent, I'm a mom of 4. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, giving of yourself. But it's not a sacrifice. This is your job. This is your obligation, your responsibility. And your child owes you nothing in return. And that's very hard for people to hear. But that's the truth.
Absolutely. It's one of the only relationships where we have a great responsibility towards our kids. A great one. Our kids don't owe us anything at all. And if we live this way, we will be so much happier as parents because our kids naturally want to give us. And when we don't raise them with that expectation, they naturally will be. That's the thing. They naturally will be so loving and kind towards us. But to come in that relationship with that expectation and impose it on them, they will run so far.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you were talking about independence and autonomy, where that woman was saying, I want them to fly on their own. I think it's really important to talk about the fact, and you said something at the beginning of the interview about that, the fact that a child is supposed to be dependent on their parent when they're children. We have to be dependent on our parent, right? We can't go out and get a job and have a house and put a roof over our head or food or even for emotional needs. We need, we're dependent on them for love and for belonging and for care and for all of those things. And the more we give them that, and the more they become independent as adults. And that can be often like a little bit like, I'm not going to say counterintuitive, that's not the right word, but it's like illogical a little bit. Like, what do you mean? Like, I have to teach them from very young to be independent. Well, no, there are areas where they need to feel you're there for them, create that bond and that security so that when they're adults, they have that security within themselves and they don't seek it outside of them.
Yeah, the healthiest independence comes after dependence. First is dependence, and then is independence. A child will naturally want to be independent in small little ways, I remember walking with one of my kids, and when they're young, you're always holding their bags. And then one day they turn up and they say, I want to hold my own bag.
Right.
And it's those small little things that you see, hey, they want to be their own, they want to be a little independent, and you lean into that. Lean into your child, your child wants to cut up their own cucumber. Lean into that. Sometimes parents take away those moments from kids, and then later on when they're older, it's like, why are you so dependent on me? But if we really take the time to see those little ways where kids want to be independent and let them, give them that opportunity, naturally a child will step into their independence. And I find that as adults, one of the hardest things for many of us, at least for me also, and for me too, something I had to navigate is being comfortable depending on someone. It's easy to be independent.
Yeah.
What about depending? What about showing a child it's okay to ask for help? We're all human. We all need help. I need help as a mom.
You're worthy of help.
Yeah,
You're
it's as if parents kind of have lost touch that there's also so much value in dependence. It's not a negative thing. The fact a child knows they can turn to us and ask for something, like, wow, thank you. Thank you for turning to me. And let me help you if I can.
I love that.
100%. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with, and it's something I had to learn, to ask for help and accept it.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
There's
So what do you think, like, that's a big thing that I've struggled with and I still do. It's like in your journey, what do you think created that challenge for you, that as an adult you had difficulty turning to somebody for help?
Because you might be rejected. When you ask for help, the more vulnerable you are in the things that you need. First of all, you could have these false ideas from your childhood that you're not good enough if you can't do it on your own, right? Because as a child, we're pushed into exactly what you said, right? Be independent, you could do this on your own. So first of all, the belief that I guess I'm not good enough, I can't do this on my own. And it's like almost a sign of weakness if you need help.
Yeah.
The thing is that when you're a parent raising kids, we need a lot of help from all different types of aspects in our life.
Yeah.
And trying to be independent while raising kids is extremely challenging. I've tried it in the beginning years of my motherhood journey, where, you don't want to ask anybody for help because then you could be also hurt, right? They could say no. They could look at you as like weak. You need help? Oh, you can't do this on your own?
Oh, she has a nanny. Oh, she has a... Yeah,
right,
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
you can't. So So back to your question.
No, it's okay. I even forgot. No, I said, what was it in your childhood that made you become, I'll call it
Independent?
hyper independent? Yeah, where you couldn't ask for help. What do you think specifically? Like for me, it was like I had to be independent young, for many reasons. My parents were very hyper focused on my sister, who, for whatever reasons, and therefore I learned very young to be hyper independent, and as an adult, you know, found myself in situations repeatedly over and over where I had everything on my shoulders. And just the best example, I'm a single mom, right? Like what bigger example can you? So where I had everything on my shoulders and I had to be this fighter warrior carrying everything, because that was my identity as a child. It was, oh, Aurélie, you could put her in a desert and she'll survive. Like those are sentences I heard from my parents. So it was like I need to fit into that role and you know, fulfill that prophecy, that label of being the strong, you know, independent warrior girl. And that caused me a lot of issues in my adult life.
Yeah.
Huge issues, like major, until I had to, you know, heal all of that. So my question to you is, what in your childhood brought you to that point as an adult?
The more independent I was, the less hurt. There was a chance of me getting hurt.
I got you. Okay.
Because if I did something with that asking help, or it was me turning to that individual, and there was a possibility of being criticized or being put down. And so the more I just stayed to myself, did what I had to do, and be independent, the less there was a possibility of an opening of being hurt. So it was a way of protecting myself.
I got you. I got it. And I wanted to ask you a question. Do you think, if I look at like the two types of behaviors that parents have, I'll say unhealthy behaviors, there's the overprotective parent and there's the neglectful parent, right? And I'm obviously vulgarizing it, like it's a spectrum, but I'm just saying in general. And I see in my practice personally, you know, before I talk, I want your opinion. Which of the two do you think causes more damage to a child? Or is it equally in different ways? What do you think?
Being overly protective, or being a free-for-all?
Yeah, or I'll say like the parent that is overly protective, like the example you gave before, like, let me do this for you. No, you can't, you know, don't do this, I'll do it for you. Versus the child that's, there's an expression in French, I can't translate, livré à lui-même. Like they're just
Raising themselves.
They're neglected. The parents are very busy working, I don't know, busy with their issues. So those two types of situations, to you, which do you think is more damaging to a child in the long term?
So whenever we look at what is being done to a child, I kind of flip that and I kind of see what is the child experiencing versus what is being done to them. What is a child experiencing? So I think that really varies for every child, depending how they navigate that. I can see a child being with, you know, helicopter parents that are overbearing and then kind of, you know, can't function on their own because they've always had their parents behind their backs with everything.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I can see a child who is raising themselves and feeling alone and feeling not seen, unheard.
Yeah.
I think it really differs. I don't have one or the other that can be more or less damaging, because it really depends on that individual and how they perceive, how they navigate that.
I hear you. I'm asking just because I found, this is just my personal experience through my work, surprisingly, I feel that those that grew up with overbearing helicopter parents have a harder time getting out of that. It's not that they're more damaged, when I say damaged, nobody's damaged, but it's not that they're more wounded. It's just harder to get out of that dynamic, or because the wound there is, I can't. The message a child gets when a parent does everything for them is, I'm not able, I don't have the capability, I can't, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough. And it's very hard for them to even seek help or seek tools, because it's, I can't seek help and I can't seek tools, versus the neglected child who goes into hyper independence, and the wound is, I have to do everything myself, I have to survive on my own, and I'm this warrior, where they, well, I can also seek tools when things get hard.
Yeah.
But
I can see that. I can see that. I'm more that second child. And I can see how at least I was able to function. Mm-hmm. At least I was able to be there for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So do you think that there's a time or an age where it's too late for parents to change their parenting approach?
My short answer is no. My long answer is for parents to understand that the first 7 years of a child's life is their foundation. Mm-hmm. 90% of their child's brain is fully developed by the age of 5. We can repair at any age. Every child, every human being longs for the love and care and attention from their parents. And also understand that, you know, if you're changing your parenting approach and your child is 13, it might not come as easily as a child who is, 3 years old and you're changing your approach. You know, there's a certain foundation there that takes place during the first 7 years of a human being's life. But at any age, and I think that's the beauty of parenting, that no matter where we're holding, no matter how old we are or our child is, how many adult children are still wishing and longing for their parents to show up in a loving way. So at any age.
Okay. What do you think is the most fundamental need a child has?
So Dr. Gabor Mate actually speaks a lot on attention and connection. And the way I see it is every single human being has, he talks about authenticity and connection.
And attachment. Authenticity and attachment.
And attachment, you're right. Okay.
It's my favorite theory.
Okay. So authenticity is a child who's able to express themselves, be themselves, share their emotions, share their thoughts, do whatever they're passionate about, and be themselves. That's a human need. And then the other human need is attachment, which is feeling of belonging, having a connection. And when we look at a child's life, that would be with their primary caregiver. So feeling a sense of belonging with them, having a sense of connection and attachment, and feeling safe and feeling nurtured and loved by this caregiver. So the goal I see as a parent, the primary need we're talking about right now, is for both of these human needs to coexist. And I'm going to give you an example that comes up as parents. For example, I have a child who's crying to me. Maybe they're upset, they want something that I'm refusing to give them. And they come to me and they're screaming and they're crying. They're yelling about it. And I tell this child, I say, I have enough of you yelling. If you don't stop, or I'm going to leave this room, go to your room. I just can't hear you crying. If you want to stay next to me, then you have to stop crying. This child now, with those two needs of theirs, right? The need to be close to us, the need for attachment, and the need to be their own self. The need to express their frustration, how deceived they are, how much pain they're feeling because of whatever happened. Right now it's in conflict, you see? The child unconsciously now has to choose, do I stop crying just to stay close to my parent? Or do I give up this closeness with my parent? And
to be myself.
To be myself, to go to my room and cry and scream over there, but at least you know what? So that's a whole other topic and something that I explain a lot to parents. But in short, it would be to never put our children in such a situation. To find a middle, to find a place in the middle, to show our child there is room in our relationship for you to be you, for me to be me, because we also need to be ourselves, and for us to also stay with this attachment.
Yeah, beautiful. And he also says that if a child is put in a position where he has to choose between both, he'll probably choose attachment over authenticity because his survival depends on it. And therefore he learns in that moment to abandon himself, to be inauthentic, or that in order to receive love, you have to abandon yourself, not be yourself, be inauthentic. And then that follows him into adulthood. And what's interesting is that I would say more than 80% of my clients come knocking at my door when they're at that point of like, I'm sick and tired of not being myself anymore. Like, get me out of this, you know? Like, I'm done with the people pleasing. I'm done with seeking love. I just want to be me, like fully me. And then we have to, go back into childhood and revisit those moments or those areas or whatever.
For sure. There's also the flip side that does also happen sometimes. Kids will say, I don't care about this attachment and I want to be myself. Those are the kids that oftentimes are labeled as defiant.
Really?
Kids who question everything, push back on things. Those kids will choose themselves over the connection. And
as children. Not as teenagers.
Not as teenagers.
Wow.
And most of these kids are what they're labeled as, misbehaving. They're not misbehaving. They just want to have a say over in their life, and they'll choose themselves over anything. The problem is that when we do that to young children over and over and over and over again for many, many years, and they're living in the pattern where they see there's no space for themselves, they need to, yell, scream, what people call misbehaving, right? They're going to do all sorts of things, try to assert themselves because they feel like there's no space for themselves. Sometimes, and I'm going to use this word very, very lightly because I know it's like overused and probably misused, but this is sometimes what can create narcissism in adulthood.
Wow.
Because there was no space. This child is growing up thinking that in the world, they don't care about the connection. They don't care about the relationship. All they care is about them because that's all they know.
So interesting what you're saying.
Yeah, they were always put in that position over and over, so they live their life that way. There better be space for me, and I'm going to make sure there is, right?
And nobody else.
Nobody else.
Like, nobody can have a self, only I can have
exactly
a fake sense of self. That's very, wow, you just like blew my mind right there, because like I've done so much research on this topic, but I've never made the connection with that root. Yeah, specifically,
this is what
that dynamic.
Children that are in this dynamic over and over for many years oftentimes are labeled, I laugh at this, they're diagnosed with, I think it's oppositional defiance disorder. Normally, that's what it is. No one is collaborating with that child. It's oftentimes you or me, and you got to choose. And the child will choose them.
Very interesting. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's so powerful.